From escalating conflicts to political showdowns, our world today is full of dynamic shifts that are influencing global politics across the world. In today's episode, we explore two critical global developments: the mounting humanitarian crisis in Lebanon amid ongoing Israeli aggression, and the intensifying race for the US presidency. I'm Karim Hatem and welcome to In Focus. The US is talking about a possible deal to the war in Lebanon for weeks, while Israel continues to widen its attacks and the humanitarian crisis continues to deteriorate. Israel has just killed and injured more than 100 people, with the death toll from the Israeli aggression on Lebanon since October 8 exceeding 2,700 people. Has reported, citing three sources, Israeli and American officials as saying that an agreement could be reached within a few weeks. The report added that Israel and the American officials believe that Hezbollah has finally become ready to distance itself from Hamas in the Gaza Strip after some of the blows it has received over the past 2 months, including the killing of its Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah. For a developments in Lebanon, we have from Mr. Shosho. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Iskandar. Now, let's talk about the visit expected from the two senior advisors of Mr. What do you think the outcomes of such a visit could be?
Good evening. At the beginning, Joe Biden, representative in the Middle East, Mr. Hochstein, is a very well-known mediator for the Lebanese. He played a big role in setting the boundaries in the water between Israel and Lebanon, and he played also a role during the war, the year of war. He visited Lebanon a week ago, and today he is heading to Israel with another assistant. It's clear now that from the side of Lebanon, they proposed the resolution 1701, but as for the proposals of Hochstein and Benjamin Netanyahu, that they do not accept 1701 according to UN report. They want some additions to it, and these additions will include an Israeli intervention if they feel any danger from the side of Lebanon, allowing the Israeli Air Force to interfere, and all of these things, which is rejected by the Lebanese side. Up till now, they put a bet on the visit of both American delegates to Israel, except if anything changes the Israeli way of talking and pushed Netanyahu to adhere to the resolution 1701. Resolution 1701 makes Hezbollah away by 20 kilometers from the Lebanese borders, according to the UN resolution. This resolution, I think, is fair for both sides. We hope to see a progress. However, there is no positivity.
What are the options of such an agreement, Mr. Iskandar, especially that there has been reports that the Israeli and American officials believe that Hezbollah probably can distance itself from Hamas in the Gaza Strip, or it's ready to do so. And at the same time, Naim Qasim, the new leader of Hezbollah, is saying that Hezbollah is ready to agree to a ceasefire within certain parameters if Israel wanted to stop the war. However, there are no indications that Benjamin Netanyahu wants to stop, is there?
Yes, that's clear, and I've said that there is no optimism up till now regarding the ceasefire. Netanyahu does not want this. He believes that he's a winner. Despite of the losses in the ground operations, he thinks that he's winning. He makes victories on the ground. It seems that this matter will delay these negotiations. As for separating both ways between Gaza and Lebanon, Naim Qasim said today that he will accept a ceasefire. Talking about accepting a ceasefire means that there will be a separation of both fronts. Either Hezbollah admitted it or not. If you want a ceasefire, this means that you are not linked to another decision, stopping the fire in Gaza or keep Gaza on fire. He speaks about what suits him. But most importantly, that there's a request for a ceasefire. Ceasefire means ceasefire from both sides. It's logical that Israel will stop the fire while Hezbollah will continue its support. A ceasefire means it's a ceasefire from Israel and from Hezbollah equally, which in definition a separation between Gaza and Lebanon.
Do you think that a ceasefire also to Hezbollah and to Qasim would mean the end of the attack on Gaza? Because Hezbollah has stated numerously in the past that its efforts are to stop the assault on Gaza.
There is a Lebanese pressure, a massive pressure, because the Lebanese state is practicing pressure. The Prime Minister, the Lebanese people are practicing pressure on Hezbollah in this regard. There are loud voices appeared saying that we do not want to link our destiny to anyone else's destiny because war destroyed Lebanon, because what happens in Lebanon is similar to what happens in Gaza. I think this is itself is a pressure on Hezbollah to separate both passes. And if Qasim in his speech today hasn't admitted the separation of both fronts, but I'd like to reiterate that talking about a ceasefire accepted by Hezbollah means that there is definitely a separation between the two fronts of Lebanon and Gaza. Hezbollah, in my opinion, is not in a position that allows it to practice pressure regarding another file, which is Gaza file. Hezbollah can barely manage its own file, its own affairs, the Lebanese affairs, to recover from the losses. I don't think that they can control several files at the same time as in the past.
Since you've mentioned the Lebanese Prime Minister and the pressure from inside Lebanon, there's been a meeting between the Prime Minister, Najib Mikati, and the Speaker of the Parliament, Nabih Berri. What do you think this meeting is going to account for, and does it act as some sort of pressure also?
Of course, what happened in almost a month or less than a month, there was a clear pressure. There's a pressure on the Lebanese Republic and on its political leaders. And this pressure moves from the Lebanese state and from the leaders to Hezbollah. to walk towards a ceasefire and acceptance of certain conditions. Of course, the condition that does not affect the sovereignty of Lebanon and does not accept or subjugate to the demands of Netanyahu for air and land interference. But there is a pressure on the state and from the state on the party to accept a ceasefire based on a clear international resolution issued in 2006, and everyone in Lebanon agrees on. Even Hezbollah said they want the implementation of that resolution.
Do you think Hezbollah is going to submit to such pressure in light of the heavy airstrikes that's been ongoing to many of the Lebanese territories, specifically in the south, and well, there has been also airstrikes in the east and the west? I'm talking about Baalbek, Al Khiyam, Sidon or Saida, and also drone strikes in Mount Lebanon.
I believe that they will accept the ceasefire. It's natural. With all of these events, with all of these strikes and the displacement that takes place on a wide scope, 3 or 4 days ago, the most important in Lebanon were hit, which are Sidon and Baalbek, and more than 300,000 people were displaced from their own homes because just the Israelis decided to strike a whole city. These cities represent the environment of Hezbollah, which is an added pressure on Hezbollah to stop the war. Hezbollah doesn't have lots of options. They talk about the battle, the land battle, and so on, but all the other factors practice pressure from the inside and from the outside and on the land by the displaced people in their popular environment, especially that we are a few days from the winter and Lebanon goes through very difficult economic conditions. There are no electricity or warming or clean water. All of these things are a pressure on Hezbollah to stop the war as soon as possible, as I said, but not with very surrendering or humiliating conditions. But if there's an international resolution, this resolution can be implemented. But the problem is that the Israelis up till now do not want to talk about this. They do not want to discuss the international resolution. They want to continue their battle thinking that they can deter Hezbollah. And this is the dilemma here.
Right.
So I think it's not the issue of the Lebanese or Hezbollah. I think it's the issue of the Israelis now.
Well, thank you very much. That was Iskandar Khashashu, a writer and political researcher from Beirut. As the US presidential election draws near, tonight we turn our attention to the intense battle for the White House. We'll explore the complex strategies of the campaigns, analyze the evolving attitudes of voters, and examine the implications of recent pivotal events. Join us as we uncover these critical factors that will shape the future leadership of the US in the lead up to Election Day on November 5.
What I call an opportunity economy.
We will make America great.
We're ready to fight for it. As one people, we are moving forward.
We will make America safe again.
Now, the New York Times' coverage of Vice President Kamala Harris's speech under the headline, "In closing, Harris casts herself as the unifier and Trump as a petty tyrant," underscores a strategic pivot in her campaign rhetoric. Harris utilized this significant platform to sharpen the contrast between her envisioned leadership and that of Donald Trump, casting herself as a unifier against Trump's divisiveness. By positioning herself alongside historical defenders of democracy, she not only distanced herself from Trump's controversial policies, but also aligned her campaign with broader democratic values. This speech, coming days before the elections, seems amid at solidifying her appeal to undecided voters by framing the election as a choice between two fundamentally different visions for America's future. This narrative, presented to a massive audience at a symbolically powerful location, could potentially sway public perception as voters make their final decisions. More on this with our guest joining us from Washington, two political figures, Maher Abdel Qadir, a Democratic Party member, and Hazem Al-Ghabra, a Republican Party member and former advisor at the U.S. State Department. Welcome, both of you, to this broadcast. Now, let me start with you, Mr. Maher, with the latest polls showing that it's a tight race between Harris and Trump. What is the strategy of the Democratic Party right now in the final meters before Election Day?
Thank you very much for hosting me. And first of all, if you looked at the CNN report this morning, Harris has a large lead compared to Mr. Trump. In addition to that, 48 million people casted their ballots out of 158 million who can cast their vote, which means that almost 25% of them voters who are eligible to vote have casted their vote. The strategy of the Democratic Party was exemplified yesterday when by Harris, when she had given a speech to a huge number of constituents that consisted of a compromise of Democrats and Republicans at the stage where Trump lost a few years back when he received the result of the election and caused the insurrection to take place, or the insurrection to take place. She took the stage at the same exact location where the White House was on her back, and he had promised America that he had a domestic list of enemies, and he had an action list to serve the American people, all aspects, economy, immigration, and she showed herself to be a powerful leader and with a vision, and she has energy, and she has the plan and the vision to lead the government. And I think that is something that was significant. Most of the reporters, including the New York Times and CNN, praised her for what she did. And I do believe that she made a big difference where she instigated Trump to go in front of his constituents and start really her. Trump relies a lot on lies, unfortunately, and relies on division, and relies on threatening people or
we'll talk about the war of words just in a moment, Mr. Maher. Let me just get Mr. Hazem in the conversation, and let's talk, Mr. Hazem, on what are the most important key messages that Trump is trying to focus on, specifically in trying to sway the undecided voters. When we saw him in Pennsylvania, we saw him in Michigan, the two largest swing states in this year's election.
Well, first of all, for your viewers, I need to clarify what your guest has mentioned, that Harris has a huge lead over Trump, according to CNN. I don't know where that is coming from. That's not true. Let's look at numbers very quickly, if you don't mind. We got Nevada, Wisconsin, North Carolina, absolutely even. Trump has a less than 1 point lead in Pennsylvania. Harris has less than 1 point lead in Michigan. Georgia and Arizona are leaning Trump.
It's a tight race that's based on most polls.
I was going to say, all of the above is within a 4% margin of error. So it's a complete toss-up at this point. There is no direction. Now, going back to messaging, this is important. The American people are very clear on their own priorities. The voters have been very clear with everybody. Economy first, the inflation that is not under control right now is a massive problem. Obviously, there is a national security concern when it comes to the U.S. southern border, and that does affect the economy. And still on the economy overall line, obviously national debt and future planning. When we see Kamala Harris promising added services to Medicare, well, Medicare is a bankrupt system that is out of funding. That shows us that she does not really know what she's talking about. When Trump talks about reforming Medicare, now we know that actually he has something there, because what the system needs a reform right now, not piling of services that it cannot provide. That system will fail eventually if the Democrats keep pressuring.
Hasn't really for that, has he, Mr. Hazem?
A plan does not exist on either side. Let's be very clear. Right now, we're talking policy. And that needs, again, this is part of the left-wing media. It's like, oh, you do not have a plan. Well, nobody has a plan at this point. The plan takes a lot of work and a lot of people working on it, and usually happens after you are part of the White House and part of the government. Right now, what we have is a policy, and that matters. Trump's policy is clear that the system needs a reform, and every expert agrees with that policy. To ask somebody who's running for office if he has a full plan, it's a bit unfair, don't you think?
Okay, let me go to Mr. Maher. How do you comment on this? Do you really think that there are no plans at the moment, that it's just policy? And do you think that Kamala Harris is not really planning what she's saying, policies towards the economy, to the perhaps one of the significant subjects also at hand in this election, the immigration and the illegal immigration, and policy in general, not just the domestic policy, but also foreign policy?
With all due respect, first of all, with regards to health and healthcare, Mr. Trump himself indicated that he does not have any plan when it comes to healthcare. I disagree with your speaker, but anyway, he himself indicated that he had a vision how to do it or articulate it, but he tried 60 times when he was a president 4 years ago to kill Obamacare without success. So he does not have any plan whatsoever.
Well, to be honest, Mr. Maher, I haven't heard Kamala Harris also talk about a specific plan.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. She want to, that she will continue with Obama. Number one. Number two, she want to add benefits to that, meaning expanded it to include vision and to include other services. Also, she want to include that anyone in America who's 26 years old and less to be part of their parents or their, family's health plan. That's a benefit. In addition to that, she want to increase benefits for Medicare. In addition to that, she wants to increase, health care to retirees and elderly. And she wants, the most important thing, she has a very comprehensive plan to force them pharmaceutical to reduce the prices. They already reduced the price of insulin to $35, and it used to be like $500, $600, $700. Their medication or their subscription, from the doctor. But right now they reduced it to $35, and she will include other medication and other medical, items on the list. When it comes to prices, and the economy, I think she has a solid plan. If you go to the American, market right now, I traveled the other day to Michigan to help in the camp, and I priced $2.77.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the war of words here. Now, Mr. Hazem, there has been accusations from Kamala Harris from her previous speech about Trump being he's trying to get revenge, and he's going to have a revenge list when he gets into the White House, and she's going to have a to-do list, and that was her exact words. How do you elaborate? Can you expand on these words, and what do you think of these accusations to Trump that he's thinking about getting revenge of policymakers, of people?
I'm not sure what she's talking about when it comes to revenge, that there's a hit list. But I don't want to focus on that because it doesn't make even any sense. We're in the United States. We're not, in some banana republic where you can go and take revenge against people. We have a system. We have a judicial system. We have a legislative system. We have eyes on you, especially if you're the president of the United States.
Well, that's the point here.
Abuse.
That's the point here,
Yeah.
isn't it, Mr. Hazem? Because Kamala Harris is saying that Trump is threatening all this.
Yeah, no. Trump, first of all, Trump was president before. Trump is not unknown. And we heard the same rhetoric back in 2016. And look, the republic stands. We still have our democracy. We still have our systems. Trump is a single person, even the president with his executive power, cannot dismantle the system the way the Democrats would like you to believe. But I want to focus on her to-do list because she's talking about her future to-do list. While she's failing on her current to-do list, she's the incumbent vice president. The failure, you cannot just export the failure of this White House into a future administration that the same people who failed today will continue to run. She doesn't have a new team. She doesn't have a different approach. She doesn't have any of that. She'd like you to believe that. And she obviously has been pushing Biden away from her campaign events just to differentiate herself from the Biden administration. But she is the Biden administration. And she, can we talk about that for a second? What they've failed to do so far on the
I'm
border,
very sorry,
on the economy, and everything else.
just run out of time. And thank you very much, Mr. Hazem Al-Ghabra, a Republican Party member and former advisor to the State and Abdul Qadir, a Democratic Party member. Thank you very much, both of you, for your insights today. And that was it for this episode for In Focus. Remember to stay updated by following Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Instagram, and also TikTok at Q News EGY for the latest developments.